You can't control that outcome right now when you're an interruption from a stranger that nobody knows about. That the intent is not to get somebody that didn't know anything about you and convince them to buy your stuff tomorrow. It's just not going to happen. But what can happen, to your point, is you can reach them, learn a lot about their current situation, their role, where they're at in their business growth, the trajectory of their business. What are their priorities right now?
Yeah, the follow-up is the key. We have that saying, there's fat stacks and the circle backs. All right, welcome back to another episode of Outbound Fluff, No Sales. Today's topic is the fluffiest of them all. We're going to be talking about meetings, which do not matter. We're going to get into specifically what is a better approach to outbound sales if I'm not trying to target meetings held or meetings set. It's going to impact things like SDR comp plans, and we'll talk a little bit about why outbound is actually a long-term strategy, what the data tells us about that, and what to do instead of focusing on meetings set. Ryan, I know this is one of your favorite topics. You ready to dive into it?
You got me a meeting?
And as always, if you enjoy this episode, hit that subscribe button because we're going to be out here every day with another episode, and drop your comments in the section below to let us know if there's anything else you want us to cover. Let's dive right into it.
The challenge with all of this is that it doesn't matter what you put the goal as when you're starting to use outbound SDR, BDR, XDR, some sort of specialist who's not going to take the first conversation to close and there's a handoff in the process. Meetings are killing gains because the expectations of the reps who are fielding these meetings lean on if they don't show up to this scheduled interaction, then nothing's going to happen. And no matter how you change the incentive model for the SDR who's responsible for either scheduling a meeting, getting a meeting to show, making sure that the meeting that shows is qualified. At some point, the sales rep who's responsible for taking that from that stage to a closed deal, it falls apart because they don't have the muscle to do the follow-up. And this is why meetings do not matter if you don't have a sales organization that's willing to actually continue to drive the ball forward. If you look at the misalignment of compensation, which drives disqualified meetings into the funnel in the first place, the behavior of the reps who are fielding these and not doing any work to actually work the process, and then the final piece is the experience for the prospect, which, let's be honest, we should just call them victims at this point, which we talked about. That's a line from Outbound Sales, no fluff, by the way. We can't call them prospects. They're freaking victims. You're trying to hammer this outcome that they don't give a shit about. They don't care about your fucking demo. They don't care about what features and functionality and stuff that the most salespeople are salivating to pitch. If I could just get high ticket closer, you get me a lead, I'm going to close them, right? The experience is absolutely terrible. It something has got to change within the mindset of the organization in order for outbound to work. And that's why we subscribe to this idea of market activation, right?
Mm-hmm.
Which is conversational advertising. It's make a list, know what to say, call the list, and follow up. The majority of your market is not ready to buy today, which means they're not really ready for the real sales meeting that everyone thinks that they're looking for. That's not happening.
Yeah.
At
And
some
Ryan,
point, you have to have a meeting with buyers, right? You have to, your prospect, the people who are making decisions,
sure.
you have to sit down and have a meeting. I'm not saying that that's not the case, but the work that it takes to get there, the compensation that you should design in order to align incentives and get the most valuable information possible and eliminate the bullshit from your pipeline, meetings scheduled is the death of modern sales development.
Yes. And I actually want to double down on this because this is exactly the point that I think gets missed when people see the headline. Meetings don't matter. At some point, obviously, in any enterprise sale, B2B sale, mid-market, even SMB sales, you're going to have to sit down with the buyer and go through something. We were just talking about it before this call with Call Blitz. There's time just give them a frictionless click through thing to do. It's like, no, people still have questions. They still have things that they want to work through verbally with a sales rep, a product expert, someone who could take them through those details. What we're saying, though, is that in the world of sales development and outbound, this concept of having a set meeting went way too far. It took over the entire profession. And what happened as a result is it skews the strategy of outbound. It's a long-term strategy. But when you focus on meeting set, it's a short-term strategy. It skews the real value of what an SDR can actually do and what they cannot control. An SDR can reach out to the market and have conversations and learn something from the buyer, from their prospect. An SDR can't convince someone that timing is right for them and that now they should go into an evaluation process to buy your product, aka a meeting set. Well, by the way, if you really want to, you can easily gamify the whole meeting set thing anyway. I could say to someone, hey, I'll pay you $250 if you show up to a meeting, and you got to actually show up 30 minutes. And I could turn that around as an agency and sell them for $500, $1,000, make a good living off of that. You as a client buying that won't close anything, but you could do it. And my point of that isn't to say that that's what happens. My point is to show how meaningless a meeting set as a first step is.
Well, that
And
is
then what,
happening. That is
and
happening.
it is definitely
Not
happening too.
only from agencies, but also internally. People have those offers. I will pay you to show up. I'll give you a
Yeah.
gift card, etc. Is that really moving the needle? One thing that I just heard this on a podcast. I can't remember who it was, either PBD or Andy Frisella, but he was talking about sales training, and he said, by show of hands, I thought this was great. I want to start bringing this up in coaching. By show of hands, how many people know when you're being sold to, right? And does it ever work, right? Like, and what I mean by that is like this concept that you just touched on around cannot control, no matter how many sales trainers and methodology and all those other things that are out there, they'll say this. We cannot control when someone is going to really sit down and make a decision, an informed decision that you're the right product or service for them. And we're talking about complex B2B sales, right?
Or
This shit,
not even
this
super
shit doesn't
complex.
even work today on consumer-based
Yeah.
products.
Yeah.
That's the point of this,
Yeah.
right? Like you're not, you feel it. You're like, when someone's trying to like hard close you on some shit, you're not moving forward with that more often than not. Now, does it work sometimes? Yes, maybe. But like we're talking about B2B sales here, multiple stakeholders, lots of decisions that have to be made. And in a market where people are so resistant to change more than ever, people are definitely afraid of making decisions. Like this generation of leaders, which is like the elder millennial, the Gen Zers that are starting to come up, like these people that are starting to make decisions, they're definitely afraid of making decisions.
Well, they're deathly afraid of being wrong and ridiculed, and as a result, don't make decisions. I think
Right.
that's the real issue. Is I hate to say it, but it's like people don't like that feeling of being wrong, the risk of being found out that like you made a mistake. It's like actually no. If you make a lot of mistakes, you'll make a lot of decisions, and the decisions you make that are good will actually be more than the decisions you would have made that would have been successful if you don't just make a ton of mistakes.
You have to take action. But getting to the point is you can't control that outcome right now when you're an interruption from a stranger that nobody knows about. That the intent is not to get somebody that didn't know anything about you and convince them to buy your stuff tomorrow. It's just not going to happen. But what can happen, to your point, is you can reach them, learn a lot about their current situation, their role, what they're using, what they're like, where they're at in their business growth, like the trajectory of their business, like what are their priorities right now,
Yeah,
and are you going to align with something that ultimately your product or service is actually going to support, right? Is it
yeah.
going to reduce cost, make more money, reduce risk? These are the things that we're after. You can learn all of that, and then you can move from you don't know me into let's start to have the conversation at the right time. And the problem is people are stuffing meetings down people's throat at the wrong time with the wrong people, and just creating a ton of fluff because
Well, yeah, and that fluff has a cost to it. It's the cost of the commission you're paying, the rep's time who's going to go through the deal and the follow up just for there to be nothing, which would have been known from the jump anyway, and the missed opportunity cost of focusing on what is actually ready right now. And I actually want to double down on what you just said, which is like, okay, so the natural question that I would ask if I didn't know all this stuff, version of me 2 3 years ago that was just about ready to throw in the hat on all this because I thought it was all just a giant fraud. But the question is, all right, then how do you do it? And when you take a step back and just ask the simple question, what does an SDR, sales rep, an outbound rep actually control? It's being able to reach the intended target who's reachable and have a conversation and then follow up. So the key is this, and there's two stories that kind of paint this picture perfectly, but the key is that I'm just there to have a full conversation. Make sure that if I reach you, you understand what it is my pitch is, and I understand where it is you are. I get a response. There's a documented outcome, a yes, no, not me, not now. There's two different stories. The story one is back when I was a SDR manager. I had this one rep. I think you've heard this already, Ryan, but she booked 6 meetings over 2 year span. She was a SDR for about 2 years and 3 months before she got promoted to an AE role. The same prospect 6 times over a 2 year span. All 6 times he showed up to the meeting. All 6 times it went from 0 to 1. That's the stages. It became qualified. All 6 times it stayed at stage one for like months and then eventually would just get close lost. And
And
what ends up happening is your qualified opportunities, if you call them stage one, SQLs, whatever you call them, SQOs, they just become a graveyard of not real deals. All
but
they become
why are they that?
because of all of these meetings that have been set with people who were probably trying to tell you anyway in the conversation, I'm not the right person. It's not a yes, it's actually a no, and not me or not now. It's some reason why they weren't ready to move forward. And instead of accepting that, creating a follow-up task and doing the follow-up, a meeting was pushed. It was like, well, what about just like a 30-minute intro call with one of my product experts? I understand it's not now, but they could just show you through, you get a demo. Hey, you could try it out. And I'm now becoming this like thirsty sales rep who is desperate. As Josh Brown calls it, I have commission breath. I'm just like, let me just get you there. Let me get that hit of commission. And that's one story, is the rep who booked 6 meetings that went nowhere with the same prospect. Poor guy just
And was
was
that the
bored.
prospect, or was that the lack of follow-up from the reps? There's two, you don't know. There's the context matters there, but
True.
that's my point earlier, which is I could take it all the way to an S1, but who's going to follow up? Clearly, my guess is if you looked at the activity, that guy or gal that was showing, you said the gal that booked the guy that showed up to the meeting 6 times, what was the follow-up from the rep post-meeting? That SDR shouldn't be the one booking it 6 more times. It should have been the rep continuing that conversation 6 more times if it was a legitimate potential customer. The
Sure.
real question is, did that person ever buy? If it's never, maybe it was a waste of time or it was a timing thing. But that's the point. Like, the first meeting doesn't fucking matter. And if the rep doesn't do the follow up after the fact, all you're doing is wasting an SDR's value, which is going out and doing the hard work to get the next person who's willing to sit and have a conversation and educate themselves into a future follow up.
Yeah.
That future follow up could be a scheduled interaction or unscheduled interaction with the professional sales team. But the professional sales team should be doing that follow up as soon as somebody has been activated. There's
Absolutely.
intrigue, intent, information. You had the first meeting. Now you just go talk to them once a quarter until they buy. It's not that difficult, right? I have plenty of stories like this. But when you're incentivizing the SDR to just book the meeting and then the reps don't do any follow up, oh, they didn't show, then call them back. Oh, they showed, but they weren't ready. Are they ever going to be someone you want to sell to? Well, yeah, they're the right person, but it's just timing. Then call them back.
Yeah. The follow-up is the key. We have that saying, there's fat stacks and the circle backs. And that's the second story. One of the reps in our systems today, a few months ago, had this experience occur where it was maybe her fifth time connecting with the same prospect. And I saw in the dialer, in front spin, all of the dispositions. It was connect, not now. Connect, not now. And she was doing the follow-up 3 weeks, 4 weeks, a month later, whatever it was. By the fifth touch point when she had the conversation, it moved into a qualified opportunity. Because
That's
that's
that's the way it should be.
outbound. That's
That's the way it
how
should
it
be.
works. You're going to get people who will understand what you do. They will give you a reasonable answer. And if you listen to what they're saying, oftentimes the answer comes back to timing is off for some reason or another. Your job in outbound as a sales rep is to do the follow up, check back with them over and over and over and over. It can be every 3 weeks, it could be 2 months, it could be a month and a half. The point is, most people are not ready right now. And yet the system of paying for meetings that is so popular for SDRs as a comp plan, as a commission plan, is literally structured to just capture that little 2-3% of the market that is maybe ready right now, or to be complete fluff. And it ends up mostly being complete fluff.
Well, the challenge with the fluff component of it is it because these should just be not now follow-ups or even activated follow-ups and the reps aren't doing the work? Or is it the SDR booking before
Hmm.
they should book? Both sides of the question, both sides of the equation, there's a problem. But again, if you change the landscape of how you think about it, and the goal of the sales development organization is to go out, have the initial conversations with the market, and push activations forward when the time's right. Continue to manage your priority follow ups or what others might call nurture until the time's right. You're going to create the North Star for sales, create a much better experience for the market, the prospects being called, where if my sales reps are not in scheduled interactions with their next best prospect, should become a client, then they have a system where they can click a few buttons and be in their next best sales conversation. Those follow ups are sales conversations. They do not need to be scheduled meetings that block off their calendar from getting real meetings put on there that they should be having. And all that white space could be used to be having 3, 4, 5 times more quality conversations with the market, continuing to understand where they're at in the development of the organization and where your product or service fits into their priorities and the problem that you solve, the business case development at the top of the funnel, the pre sales process that everybody messes up because they don't use buckets. They don't use the completions concept. They don't understand that meetings do not matter until they matter. And the time that is wasted on people's calendars with, I mean, look at the no-show rates. And this isn't a function of, again, there's probably people commenting about this might see this like, oh, that just means they're not quality. Yeah, probably. Reps are pushing meetings that shouldn't happen. If someone was generally interested in buying right now, they're probably going to show up to the damn meeting, right? If you're not, you're probably not going to prioritize it. It's not that
Yeah.
difficult, right? That being said, it doesn't mean that someone missed a meeting isn't worth the sales rep following up to determine when is the right time to
And let's be
engage in this
clear,
conversation.
that follow-up is picking up the phone and calling the person back. If you got them on the phone, let's say, in the first place, you know that they'll pick up again. So the
Mhm.
sales rep who's waiting 5 minutes on that Zoom line for the meeting to occur, the prospect doesn't happen, go pick up the phone and call them right then and there. If you get them to answer, "Hey, looks like we were scheduled to meet now. You still got a few minutes to chat about this?" Have an unscheduled intro call. And if they don't pick up, call them back the next day. See if you can get
Yes.
they're an activated lead. There's someone who showed enough interest to actually set the meeting. So there's something there that has to be uncovered. As a sales rep, it's your job to uncover is this qualified or not and move forward.
Yeah. And the solution to this becomes align incentives, right? Get get information from your market, understand which people at companies you want to be doing business with, own the problem that your product or service solves, understand their current state of how they're trying to solve that problem. Get a sense of their other list of priorities right now and where you fit into that, and build your business case via follow-up. It's not rocket science. And you're not going to convince somebody that doesn't know anything about you right now to buy tomorrow.
Yes.
It's just not going to happen.
And this takes us to the final point. Outbound is not a short-term strategy. It is a long-term strategy. I mean, Ryan, what are the stats on follow-up success rates and activated follow-up success rates? So
When
when I'm
you
calling someone not for the first time and when I'm calling my activated leads.
Yeah, I mean, when you cold call, the benchmark for scheduled meetings, which again is a bad metric, but let's just look at the benchmark for market, right? It's anywhere from like 3 to 12% schedule rate. Cold. You don't know anything about me. You're gonna schedule in the 3 to 12% range. With follow-ups, you usually see a 1.5 to 3x lift on that. On the low end, it jumps up to 8 to the high end. You could be at 30, 40% schedule rate. And again, I'm making calls back to activated leads right now with one of our clients, and I was showing you the dashboard. It's like it's insane how activations convert. We posted Taven's results publicly a couple months back. Like his dial to meeting was like 3 on activated leads. You know, connect rate was almost 50%, and his schedule rate was almost 50%. It's like 3.5, 4 dials to a meeting. Insane. It's work that needs to be done by somebody, and the problem that kills me is when the sales team won't do the follow up, and so you have
Mhm.
the SDR call, and all they can do is schedule the next meeting. And there's over half of these conversations that'll say, I've been super busy, but I am interested. You have some time to talk right now. And the SDR that only can schedule meetings to have the professional come in, they're dead in the water, right? They're dead in the water. They can't do anything. Well, that's like I would love to get you on with my team. I have time now. I'm busy. Can't answer my questions, go away. I actually just had that. I just had this conversation with one of the follow-ups for Factify. It's like caught the CTO of a company, and he's like, "Yeah, I'm just waiting for that information and from your
Mm.
your other person. From they already had a meeting. It was a reactivation, right? I'm just waiting. So no, I'm not interested. Have them give me what I asked for." Hangs up. And so I sent an email, followed him up, and then the guy responds. He's like, "Yeah, I was just looking for this piece of information." It's like you could have just made that call and you could have had a nice conversation with the CTO of
Yep.
this business. I don't do anything by just trying to reschedule this person. Most like, what are we going to reschedule? So you guys can go sit down and come up with something that you're not going to follow up on after the fact anyway. It's not helpful.
Get to the point. Get to what it is that you you really want and what you really need, the best way to do that is to have a conversation with them.
But most of the follow-up doesn't require another meeting.
Right. It could just be done on a
It's
call,
just over the phone. We
email.
just we just talked about this with the call but scenario.
Yes.
You don't need the meeting to get to the close in this situation. It's like
I texted the guy.
and he has questions enough that a conversation would solve for that. Right?
Yeah, I'm gonna call him back after this and just ask him where the
That's
where the
it.
misunderstanding is. Man,
Solved. It's either a yes or a no. Move forward or not. It's not a big deal. When you force meetings down people's throats,
yeah.
when you have a misalignment of where people get paid based on the result of that meeting, and then now you have this fighting he said she said it's qualified not qualified. We have this conversation a lot with some of our clients like, oh, it was held, but was it held qualified or held not qualified? Like that's where their comp comes in, and then the reps are then judged by sales on, hey, why isn't that moving forward yet? So you see there's this direct conflict of interest because you're saying SDRs have to create qualified opportunities that are going to move forward into the pipeline, and then the sales is getting their leaders pumping down their throats like, hey, why isn't that moving forward? So they're less likely to say it's an actual opportunity, which screws over the BDR SDR who's booking that. Even though it's a quality sales conversation right now, it may not be
Mm,
something that's going to close tomorrow, but they've done their job. They got the right person at the right account. Timing's not perfect, but the salesperson should be involved right now. That's what's going to progress the deal forward. They're not going to close tomorrow. They're not going to close next month, but maybe they close next year. The BDR has done their job. They activated the market. It's now in the sales hands to continue to do their follow up, nurture that lead, and there shouldn't be a misalignment on incentives because as soon as you have this KPI, especially like the opportunity creation, S2, whatever it might be, there's just this constant battle. You kill motivation with the team. They're not likely to go and have that next conversation. You lose out on doing exploratory conversations within accounts because as soon as the sales department's saying, which you hear it all the time, needs to be this person with, they're ready to go in this time frame. There's all this qualification criteria. Now the BDR is not even passing over the conversation that should be happening from sales, but it's not
mm.
because sales is saying, I can't call this an opportunity. It's great conversation, but I can't call it an opportunity. And now it's not happening. Now that conversation isn't had by anybody.
And those are your warmest leads in outbound, and they're
But those are
not
your
being
those
hit.
are your best future opportunities
That's
that
right.
no one touches. It's the graveyard. You do all this work to activate them. There's conflict of interest on is it something I can close tomorrow? Sales leaders are pumping down their throat to do it. It has to be qualified over here. Do you see that big gap that happens in outbound? You
Yeah.
create a Venn diagram of this, right?
And maybe we'll do this on the next episode where we could break down why our comp plan is structured on completed conversation for the SDR, not meeting set. And then the second variable, which is often close one revenue or some sort of qualified criteria, and how that actually aligns better to the behaviors that you want from your SDR. Because that does support exactly what we're talking about here. But if you guys enjoyed this episode, we're going a little bit deeper on this one into this whole concept of why meetings don't matter, what to do instead, focus on completions, completed conversations, and following up with them, and the impact of that long term versus short term. If you enjoyed this episode, hit subscribe. Also, let us know if there's any other topics you'd like us to cover. But stay tuned for the next one. Ryan and I are going to be back every day. I think we're on episode, what is this, like 23 now? 24? We've been
I lost
busy
track.
recording them. And as always, I'm Ronan Pesar. With me is Ryan Reiser. We're the Outbound Operators. Thanks for tuning in.
Peace.